Okay, my friends around the world, sorry it's been a while since I did my last reading. I'm really excited to finally be back with you guys to do the fourth installment of this reading. And to celebrate it, I busted out my much more expensive camera, which won't cut off at 13 minutes and 33 seconds like the last one did. I was kind of excited about that too. 13 minutes 33. I like to see those triple threes there. But I'm going to start off where I ended last time. I'm going to read it even though I read it twice. The last paragraph, I read it twice on the last third section. So this is the fourth section of the most amazing writing by Nichiren Daishonin, or one of the most amazing writings, by the way. There might be more. It's called The Unanimous Declaration by the Buddhas, the longer title I put up there earlier. I don't want to read it. So this last section, which I read twice at the end, I'm going to read it again because Maru Maru Sensei there, maybe the Japanese version is more difficult to understand, and I know a lot of my Japanese friends have told me the writing that Nichiren did with Chinese and Japanese is very old style, sophisticated writing style that a lot of people don't read today. It's like almost us reading the Bible, which is very difficult. I don't understand that old English style myself. Shakespeare English, which actually was all, both of them were not Shakespeare at all. It was actually the person who wrote Shakespeare, but that's a whole other story. Sir Francis Bacon. Okay, he did the translation of the Bible too, or one of the main translators. King James Bible. Okay, so this last section is really the essence of the crux of the whole, this idea that there's any distinction between everyone being a Buddha. So I'm just going to read it again because maybe some people didn't understand it quite enough. This one vehicle of the Lotus Sutra, of the wondrous law present in one's mind. So this one vehicle, which is Myoho Renge-kyo, present in one's mind, not in some person called Nichiren Daishonin, not in some Gohonzon called the Dai-Gohonzon, not in some historical Buddha named Shakyamuni. This is the one vehicle that is present in one's mind. So if that doesn't make sense, I don't know what else makes sense. Okay, so it's in your mind, my mind, everyone's mind. We're all one. Okay, once again, this one vehicle of the Lotus Sutra, of the wondrous law present in one's mind, pervades all the pure lands of the 10 directions without exception. Okay? Without exception, we are all Buddhas from time without beginning, which this is saying. And here we go on. The blessings that adorn the living beings and the environment in the pure lands of the 10 direction are present within one's own mind. And I'm pointing at my head, but actually the kanji for mind is heart. So the Chinese characters were much more true to what your true mind is. Got to keep pointing up here because that's the Western idea of the logical mind, but the larger mind is the heart. We know that now from the Heart Math Institute and from other studies of the heart. It's got more neurons than actually the brain has, but anyways, that's a long discussion. So the mind is the heart and the head, brain. Okay, so I'm going to start pointing down here as I say this anymore. This one vehicle of the Lotus Sutra, of the wondrous law, present in one's own mind, I'm going to point down here, pervades all the pure lands of the 10 directions without exception. The blessing that adorn the living beings and the environment in the pure land of the 10 directions are present within one's own mind. And I'm pointing at my heart because that's where the mind is. And never departs from it for an instant. Never departs means it's always been there, always will be there, which is time from out without beginning, which we'll get into more on about that. This is the thus come one of original enlightenment. This is the thus come one of... Thus come one means the Buddha. From original enlightenment means from time without beginning. If this is what's in your mind and in your heart, there's nothing outside of that. So you are a Buddha from time without beginning. This paragraph is saying it. You can look on page 840 if you need me to read it for you and read it for yourself. I don't know what the Japanese reading says, but it should be pretty clear like this, okay? This single law exists within the pure lands of the 10 direction, and no other law exists. That means there's no law in some artificial enshrined scroll that someone wrote, whether it was Nichiren or someone else, it doesn't really matter. because that's not the law. The law is in our own mind, and I'm pointing at my heart now because that's the stronger mind than the one upstairs. Okay, the single law exists within the Pure Land of the Ten Direction, and no other law exists. Hence, it is called the law without distinctions. And of course, in the Lotus Sutra, it says, "I made a great vow to make all people equal to me with no distinctions." This is what Shakyamuni said to his greatest disciple, Shariputra. You can call him Gautama if you want, or you can call him any other number of names you want to call him, but I just call him Shakyamuni. The Buddha means the awakened one, and whatever title you want to give him, it doesn't really matter, because we are all awakened ones. And this paragraph said it perfectly. I don't need to say any more, but I'm going to go on because there's a lot more deeper things in this, but I just started off with what I ended with last time, and here we go on, reading on page 840 in the second volume of the writings of Nichiren Daishonin. Okay, to fail to practice this wonderful law of the one vehicle, but instead to seize on the expedient means teachings, which do not exist in any form in the Pure Lands, and hope thereby to attain Buddhahood, is the most deluded of delusions. Okay, so believing that there's a Gohonzon outside of yourself called the Dai-Gohonzon, or the one in my room, which is over here, which I don't want to make a video of, and thinking that's the true Gohonzon when your life is the true Gohonzon, is deluded beyond delusions, what he's saying here. Okay, or to think that the Buddha, a historical figure, Gautama, Shakyamuni, Siddhartha, whatever you want to call him, the awakened one, the thus come one, is the actual object of devotion, or the law is a deluded form of Buddhism, according to this paragraph, because the only one is the one that's in your heart. Okay, going on. After Shakyamuni had attained Buddhahood, he then returned to this impure land, and in order to enable the living beings of the impure land to enter the realm of Buddhahood, he gradually led them and guided them by preaching the expedient means teachings. This is what is called the teaching intended for the instruction and conversion of others. Hence, these are referred to as provisional teachings, or as expedient means. So all teachings before the Lotus Sutra are all expedient means, and all teachings that teach according to the understanding of the people listening, not according to the understanding of the thus come one or the enlightened beings, which we all are, which is what the last sutra, the Lotus Sutra, or the last threefold Lotus Sutra, was preached about. Okay, that is the only true teaching of the thus come one, because he said it himself in that teaching. All the other one were just provisional teachings. He kind of did a step preparatory teaching to finally get to his final teaching, which is the Lotus Sutra. Okay, the nature of the doctrine that pertain to the instruction and conversion of others is in general, let me read that again. The nature of the doctrines that pertain to the instruction and conversion of others is in general, as I have outlined it here. Next, we come to the teaching that pertains to the Buddha's enlightenment, namely the Lotus Sutra, preached in the last 8 years of the Buddha's life. Now, there's a whole bunch of people or a whole bunch of misled scholars and Buddhists that think only the first canon of the School of Elders, which is called the Theravada teaching, which is also called in the Mahayana teaching the lesser vehicle, which is the Hinayana. They think that's the only teaching of Shakyamuni, because the final teachings, which is the Mahayana and the true Mahayana teaching, which is the higher vehicle, completely disputes all those teachings. So of course, it would be very simple for them to just say, oh, everything that disputes all of our teachings is definitely not taught by the same teacher we had, so it can't be true Buddhism. So that's just another deluded, mistaken understanding of the teachings. Okay, this sutra deals with the original mind of enlightenment in the waking state. When it says original mind of enlightenment, that means from time without beginning, which we already discussed why it says that in this thing. Original enlightenment means from time without beginning. In the waking state. Okay. But because living beings are accustomed to thinking in the mental terms appropriate to the dream state, it borrows the language of the dream state in order to teach the waking state of the original mind. So why did they call the Buddha? He said, I'm a awakened one, or I'm awake. They asked him, are you a god? Because he was glowing. Are you a demon? And they asked him a bunch of things. He said, no. All those things he said, no. They said, what are you? I'm awake. So the only thing he was trying to do is awake people up to their true state, which is awakened beings, which is what this is talking about. The original awakened mind from time without beginning, which is our true nature. Okay, however, though the language is that employed in the dream state, the intention behind it is to give instruction in the waking state of the original mind. This is the aim of both the text of the Lotus Sutra itself and of the commentaries on it. If one does not clearly understand this, one will inevitably misunderstand the wording of both the sutra and its commentaries. One should note that the dream realm doctrines set forth in the teachings designed for the instruction and conversion of others are doctrines of the functions inherent in the waking state of the original mind. Because the dream realm teachings are subsumed within the waking state of the original mind, the doctrines preached in the first 42 years of the Buddha's preaching life, the expedient means intended for the instruction and conversion of others in the realm of dreams, are subsumed within the waking mind that is revealed in the Lotus Sutra of the Wondrous Law. So although the other teachings are considered preparatory and considered to be only for that time period when they were taught, they still are within the final teachings. So once you learn the final teachings, all those have relevance. So it's not like we're saying discard or not read those or not learn from them, because every one of the teachings are great teachings, but you have to understand them within the context of the final teachings, which is we're all Buddhas, which is the basic tenet of the Lotus Sutra. Okay, where was I? Okay, we're going to maybe go back a little. Because the dream realm teaching are subsumed within the waking state of the original mind, the doctrines preached in the first 42 years of the Buddha's preaching life, the expedient means intended for the instruction and conversion of others in the realm of dreams are subsumed within the waking mind that is revealed in the Lotus Sutra of the Wondrous Law. Outside of this mind there is no other teaching. This is what is known as the opening up and merging affected by the Lotus Sutra. The opening up and merging affected by the Lotus Sutra. I'm going to underline that because we might talk about that later on. Okay, I'm going to go on though right now. The situation is comparable to the multitude of streams being gathered into the great ocean. The wonder of the Buddha mind and the wonder of the mind of living beings, these two wonders are subsumed within the mind of the individual, and therefore we may say that outside of this mind there is no teaching. So the mind of the Buddha and the mind of the individual who's reciting the sutra or learning the sutra, it says here, there's no distinction between them. They are the one mind. So it's actually universal consciousness. So our ninth state of consciousness, which in Buddhism we call alaya consciousness, I think it's called in Sanskrit, is a universal consciousness that we all are part of oneness with. So there's no wisdom ever known through all time, space, dimensions, and realities that isn't known in our mind at its truest sense. So we are all enlightened to everything that ever was and everything that ever will be. So that's what this is saying. One's own mind, the mind nature, and the mind entity Okay, so this is the three factors of life. The entity is also the nature and the physical part of it. I forget exact the words. Honoze so, noze sho, noze tai, I think it is. Anyway, we're going to get into this later, hopefully. But the three factors talks about the physical manifestation of reality, the spiritual manifestation of reality, all within the entity of reality, which is basically similar to the idea within Christianity of the triune Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. But that's kind of a whole other subject that I don't want to get into right now, because that's a totally bastardized teaching from Buddhism and from other teachings that was passed on to become part of Christianity, which I don't have time to get into. But please read the Secret Teachings of All Times, and you'll kind of get an understanding of that. Okay, where was I? One's own mind, the mind of nature, and the mind of entity, or the mind entity, which is the three factors. These three are the three bodies of the thus come one. So the three bodies of the Buddha and the first three factors of life, it's basically the same thing. One of original enlightenment within one's own body. So this is all one of original enlightenment within one's own body, not within one's Gohonzon, or not within one scroll bigger than the other ones called the Dai-Gohonzon, not within one being called Nichiren Daishonin, not within one being called Shakyamuni, Gautama, Siddhartha, whatever you want to call him, Buddha. This is within one's own mind, or one's own body. Okay, there's no separation between mind and body in Buddhism. What is that, Shikishinfuni, I think? Okay, maybe I got the kanji wrong there. It's been a long time since I said it in Japanese. But the oneness of body and mind is the term here that's going one of original enlightenment within one's own body. Okay. This is what the Lotus Sutra means when it speaks of the three factors. There we go. Appearance, nature, and entity. Honoze so, noze sho, noze tai, right? Okay, the appearance, the thus come one of the manifest body. Nature, the thus come one of the reward body. And entity, the thus come one of the Dharma body. So the three bodies of the Buddha are the three factors of life, which is in everything, whether it's this printer here, or this light here, or this bed sheet, or this goofy old 60s. These were hand-me-downs. Curtains, or this old clunker bed here. It's all part of the three factors of life, so it's all original enlightenment. The thus come one of original enlightenment, here we go again, marked by these three factors, embodies in flesh the phenomenal realm of the 10 directions, has for his mind nature the phenomenal realm of the 10 directions, and takes on for his appearance the auspicious features of the phenomenal realm of the 10 directions. Thus, one's own body becomes the body of the thus come one of original enlightenment, endowed with the three bodies. It pervades and embraces the whole phenomenal world and manifests the functions of a single Buddha. Hence, as the Buddha explained in his preaching, all phenomena are manifestations of the Buddhist law. So all phenomena, which is you, me, and everything else we want to pray to, we want to call our true object of worship or whatever, it's all phenomena, it's all a manifestation of the Buddha law. And in the Nirvana Sutra, the final sutra right after the Lotus Sutra, right before he passed away, he says, rely on the law, not on the person. So this is the law where he's talking about. The law of your own consciousness, of your own true being. When he did so, all the beings who were seated in the assembly, this is the assembly in the air at Eagle Peak, the 4 kinds of believers, the 8 kinds of non-human beings, the animals, the non-Buddhist believers, all without a single exception instantly cast off the distorted vision and distorted thoughts of delusion, returned to the waking state of original enlightenment, and thus attained the Buddha way. Okay, so the Gohonzon, which I'm not going to show here, but you can. A lot of people posted them on the internet. I'm not really into posting them on the internet. I don't have a right, wrong, or opinion about whether that's right or wrong, and I don't want to judge anyone. But you know, you're looking at a Gohonzon right here. So if I'm on the internet, so could a scroll be on the internet. But this ceremony in the air, which has all the different beings, which we're talking about here, all the demons and all the different Buddhas and all the different Bodhisattvas and all these different beings that are all seated in the assembly in the air, is what the Gohonzon is just a depiction of that in writing. So, but the actual real Gohonzon is the one which this is talking about in our life. Okay, we'll go on. And luckily I can go longer than 13 minutes now with this camera, so let's see how long I'm going to go before I get tired. This is just to make up for all the time I've been since my third installment. Okay, the Buddha is like a person awake, and living beings are like persons dreaming. Therefore, when the latter wake from their empty dream of birth and death and return to their waking state of original enlightenment,